Anyways, I will start today's review by asking you guys a question. Would you buy a Toyota Premio T240 for 750,000 Kenya shillings? Well, before we answer that question, I have to tell you a little bit about the car, and that is because Auto Connect is the only channel that will guarantee you an alluring motor vehicle experience. Whether ni gari ya kifahari ama ni gari la mkulima mdogo, we are going to cover them at Auto Connect. And I'm going to be your host, ERICKO Kabi, Eric with a CK. Remember, you can follow me at a personal level on Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok as well. And now we are going to get up close and candid with the 2005 Toyota Premio Z240. I will start by giving you some very interesting facts about this car. And before we even talk about it, we have got this car from ERICKO Identity Cars. His number is there, so in case you're looking for a locally used vehicle, unaweza na ERICKO Identity. Now let's get back to the Toyota Premio. Interesting fact, this is the first generation Toyota Premio. There are people who would dispute, but I'm going to explain why this is the first generation of the Toyota Premio. Remember a car that Kenyans call Premio Nyoka? Yes, Andy will put a photo of the Premio Nyoka on the screen for you guys to see. Now, the Premio Nyoka was not exactly a Premio. It was a Toyota Corona. Yes, it was in the Toyota Corona lineage. But there was this, towards the end, Toyota decided to isolate it from the Corona lineage by calling it the Toyota Corona Premio. But fast forward, on the 25th of December 2001, Toyota unveiled this car, and they decided that now the Premio nameplate is not going to be a variant or a trim, it's going to be an independent model. Yes, so that is how the Toyota Premio T240 came to be the first generation Toyota Premio, with the Premio nameplate as an independent nameplate. Now there is also the other question. What about the Toyota Allion? Now the Toyota Allion and the Toyota Premio are parallel models. In fact, there is no difference between the Toyota Premio T240 and the Toyota Allion T240. Yes, the only difference is the Toyota Allion was made by Toyota to try and appeal to a younger generation. It was more youthful, but this Premio was for the more mature generation. And the Premio was sold, okay, in Japan, Toyota has different, they have different outlets for their vehicles. And in Japan, Toyota has different outlets for their vehicles, and there are so many. And I told you the Allion is more oriented to the younger or more youthful generation, and that is why it is marketed by the Toyota store. So it is officially and exclusively sold by the Toyota store. However, and one more thing, the Allion is sold as a smaller companion to the Toyota Crown. Tuko pamoja hadi hapo. Now let's fast forward to the Toyota Premio. Now the Toyota Premio is basically now the Allion, but for a more mature market. And it is sold by the Toyopet store in Japan, and it is sold to be as the smaller companion to the Toyota Mark X. Ukiangalia Mark X mingi sana, GRX 120, GRX 130, they normally have a sticker hapa imeandikwa the Toyopet store. So those are some of the differences between the Allion and the Premio, but mostly the difference is in who is being targeted by Toyota to buy these cars. So the Allion is for the younger generation, and that is the Allion T240. The Premio is for a more mature generation, and that is why the Allion looks a bit more sporty compared to the Premio. Now, why was the Premio 240 loved by many? Before I tell you about it, not all Premio 240s and not all Allion 240s were good. In fact, there are some of them that you should avoid like a plague. But let's start with the good stuff, and I'll start by opening up to see what we have under the hood and the options that we have. So under the hood of the Premio T240, one of the reasons why this car was loved is basically because it's a fairly simple car. And it is different from the Toyota Premio 260, between the 260 and the 240, there is a whole big difference. But today, I want us to talk about the 240 because it's very affordable. And we are going to see if it is indeed value for money if you're buying it for 750,000 Kenya shillings. Now, let's start with the history of the first generation Toyota Premio. There was a facelift from 2001 to 2004. The lights were not, the lights and the interior were a bit different from this one. But from 2005, we started getting some very sleek taillights, and also we had some xenon headlights plus some other fancy features from 2005. Now, what are the engines available on the Premio 240? Now, the Premio 240 is available in 3 major engines. And I want you guys to be very careful in case you want to buy a Premio 240, because one of them is a lemon. It's not a car that you should consider owning. Now, the Premio is known for reliability. So you have, if you're buying a Premio 240, you will find it in 3 engine configurations. One of them is the 1500cc 1NZ. And we know the 1NZ to be Punda ya kazi. It's 1NZ FE. FE stands for, it has a normal cylinder head with a dual overhead camshaft design, and E, it means it has electronic fuel injection. That is according to Toyota's engine naming convention, and this will come in handy at some point. The other engine we have is this engine right here, and this is the 1800cc 1ZZ FE engine, or if you're an American, they call it 1ZZ, but basically hapa, because we use the British English, this is the 1ZZ. Now, the 1ZZ, 1800 cc's of displacement, 4-cylinder, and you know, it has a normal cylinder head. It's not the sporty version of the 1ZZ, so it's the FE. So normal cylinder head, dual overhead camshaft design, and electronic fuel injection. And this generation of the 1ZZ was loved because of one thing. Now, reliability is one. Second is simplicity. Unaona hii throttle niya, the throttle niya cable. And one thing with these cables, you can see I can move it from here. Drew, wacha uonyeshe. I can move it from here. Now, this is a cable. This is a throttle that is operated by a cable. What are the advantages of a throttle that is operated via a cable? One of those advantages is the reliability. But the reason why we saw the evolution of throttles to become now the throttles that are controlled electronically is because of something called precision. Well, this might be reliable, but in terms of precision, an engine with an electronic throttle would be more precise. Because the controls are done by the ECU communicating with the throttle position sensor and all that. Lakini hii ni unakanyaga wire inavuta. But this one is reliable but not as precise as the one that is controlled electronically. Now let's get to the third engine. Now, if you're thinking of buying this Premio or an Allion with this engine, then I would advise you guys not to buy, because there are two major problems. Now, that engine, first of all, is the 1AZ FSE. Remember I told you about Toyota's engine naming convention, and kawambia it will come in handy. So this is where it comes in handy. The engine is called 1AZ FSE. Now, F, it means it has a normal cylinder head. It's not a performance variant. It has a dual overhead camshaft design. Now, there is the S, and S means that this is a direct injection petrol engine, what Toyota calls D4. And those first generations of the D4 engines were quite, the first and the second, they were quite unreliable. They faced issues of carbon buildup, burning oil at high mileage. So if you're buying a Premio 240 with a 2000cc engine, well, I would rather you buy the 1.8 liter. The 1800cc 1ZZ. The 2AZ has had a bad reputation, even with the Allion. So ukiona Premio D4 ama Allion D4, tafadhali, those ones, it would be good if you avoid them, especially now that they are quite old. Tuko pamoja. Now, there is another thing about the 2-liter engine that is in the Toyota Premio T240. That thing is the transmission. Now, if you're buying a Toyota Premio T240 with the 1NZ FE engine or the 1ZZ FE engine, you will get it in the automatic transmission. The automatic transmission Toyota calls U341F. It's a 4-speed automatic transmission. However, Toyota started experimenting with the CVT transmission on the Premio 240, but not all 240s. Remember, if you buy the Premio with the 1NZ, 1500cc, or the 1ZZ, the 1800cc, you will get them with the U341 4-speed automatic transmission, which is a very good transmission. However, ukinunua ile iko na 1AZ, the 2000cc 1NZ, you will get it with a CVT transmission. And it's not only a CVT transmission. This is when Toyota was introducing CVT transmissions. And we know whenever you're introducing something new, there are some expected hitches here and there. So this goes out to all Kenyans and Ugandans, by the way, because Ugandans are also watching AutoConnect. If you're buying a Toyota Premio T240, please buy the one with the 1500cc 1NZ or the one with the 1800cc 1ZZ, because the one with the 2000cc engine, the 1AZ, that is where the problem started. One, a D4 engine. Secondly, imagine a D4 engine mated to a CVT transmission. Sawa. But anyway, let's talk about which is the best Premio 240 to buy. The best Premio 240 to buy is the 1800cc with the 1ZZ. Why do I say that? Yes, the one with the 1NZ is good. In fact, the 1NZ is a very beautiful engine that was, produced by Toyota. But if you're putting it in a Premio, it means your Premio is going to be a bit lazy. So if you want a balance between performance and fuel economy, the best bet will be the one with the 1ZZ engine. Now let's talk about matters suspension. If you're buying the Toyota Premio T240, it's a very basic car. You have conventional McPherson struts at the front and independent rear suspension. However, these vehicles again come in two configurations: 2-wheel drive and 4-wheel drive. Now, how do you tell between the 2-wheel drive Premio and the 4-wheel drive Premio, especially for the T240? Now, if you're looking at the chassis code, which is here, niliwaonyesha hii kitu kwa review ya CX5 na Harrier. There is the chassis code here. Now, this one is the ZZT245. What does ZZT245 mean? ZZT245 means that this is a Premio 240 with 4-wheel drive. Tuko pamoja? But it was ZZT240. It would mean it's a Premio with a 1ZZ engine, 1800 cc's of displacement, automatic transmission, but 2-wheel drive. But ZZT245 means it's a Toyota Premio T240 with a 1ZZ, 1800 cc's of displacement, but 4-wheel drive. So the 5 represents 4-wheel drive. So the first way to identify them is by looking at the chassis code. The second way, kama hiyo haijaingia, if you have not understood that, there is another way. You just walk to the rear of the Premio 240, unainama chini. So you just walk to the rear of the car and you just at least go down on one knee, probably a hand, and observe what do we have at the center of the rear suspension. Now, if the vehicle is male or 4-wheel, it's going to have a differential unit pale katikati. And 2 things, drive shafts going to each wheel end. So according to what we have seen or how we have studied the anatomy of this Toyota Premio T240, we can confidently say, afande, hii ni ndume. Anyway, it's 4-wheel drive. Tuache mchezo sasa. Why do people dislike 4-wheel drive Premio 240s, 260s, and most light passenger vehicles? They don't seem to like them. Now, this is for 3 reasons. 1, fuel consumption. There'll be this question, Wakabi, does the Toyota Premio 4-wheel consume more than the Toyota Premio 2-wheel? Now, the answer will be yes and no. The reason why I'll go towards the yes side, this is purely theoretical and purely based on physics. So these vehicles are mostly full-time four-wheel drive. They'll get you out of sticky situations because they have more traction. You will have more grip on the road because they have more traction. Your tires will wear evenly because you have uniform traction. However, there are extra components on this vehicle to enable the four-wheel drive aspect of it, like there is a propeller shaft and there is a differential. So this means there is more weight, one, and secondly, there is more resistance. So what does that translate to? That translates to significantly more fuel economy. But the difference, depending on how you drive and how you maintain your vehicle, might be close to negligible. Well, kwa gari za kitambo or earlier models, there was actually a difference because they were not intelligent enough. But these days, with the modern four-wheel drive systems and all-wheel drive systems, the vehicles are intelligent enough. So the difference in fuel consumption might actually be negligible. Are we together? The second reason why people dislike the four-wheel drive Premios is purely because of mechanics. Now, why do mechanics dislike four-wheel drive passenger vehicles? If you're doing routine maintenance of the rear suspension on a Premio 240 or a Premio ZZT245, the labor will be immense. The intensity of labor will be immense. It's not as easy as replacing the suspension or the bushes of a two-wheel drive Premio. This one, you have more components, so meaning you have more work to do. And that is one reason why mechanics will dislike a four-wheel drive Premio, but it's not a bad vehicle. Now, the third reason is the difference in components. Why is this so? Now, these vehicles have what we call ABS brakes or anti-lock, anti-skid brakes, whatever you want to call them, but ABS, let's settle with ABS. So, the ABS sensor for the Premio ZZT265, the rear ABS sensor is different from the rear ABS sensor of the Toyota Premio ZZT260. In layman's terms, the ABS sensor is different from the four-wheel drive ABS sensor is different from the two-wheel drive ABS sensor. And most of the times, there are mechanics that will change. Will put in a two-wheel drive ABS sensor on the rear of a Toyota Premio ZZT265. And what happens mostly, the vehicle goes into limp mode. Yes. And that error is prevalent in Premio 260s. Some people have even had to change gearboxes because of an ABS sensor. Something so minute making you change expensive components of your car. So those are some of the things that you need to know. Those sensors are actually quite different. And yes, as I've explained, so if you have a four-wheel drive Premio, be very careful about the sensor, the ABS sensor, and also the suspension works on the rear. Now let's look at the practicality of this Premio 240. Well, it's a spacious vehicle. Ni gari iko na space and they come with some very good looking interiors. This one is grey, it's a dark grey interior. We have some that have these very attractive beige interior. In fact, I have a loving for those beige interiors because they make the Premio look very, very luxurious. If you look at early on T240s, Premio T240s and T245s, Toyota Mark X and the Toyota Crown, you'll notice that all of them have this fake wood finish. But it might be fake, but it gives this vehicle some sort of appeal when you're driving it. But generally, it's a very simple vehicle. And when it comes to driving thrill, well, this is not a vehicle that you would be buying for you to have fun while driving. This is a family vehicle. This is a car that will be bought by somebody who is looking at reliability, somebody who is looking at fuel economy, ease of maintenance. Now, this will be the perfect vehicle. But now, I'll pose one question to you guys. Would you buy this Toyota Premio ZZT265 from ERICKO Identity Cars for 750,000 Kenya shillings? And now this brings me to yet another topic, and that is the topic of resale value. What is resale value? You know, by the time, and this is a myth that I would want to demystify. Now, for instance, ERICKO Identity will tell you that hii gari, when I was importing this car, I got it for 750,000 Kenya shillings. And years later, about 10 years later, you're still selling it for 750,000 Kenya shillings. So they'll tell you, or most laymen will tell you that yes, the vehicle has retained its value, and that is very wrong. And this is a notion that cuts across the board. Mtu anakuambia, yes, I bought my NZD, I bought my Subaru Legacy BP9 or Subaru Outback BP9 for like 850,000, and I'm selling it 10 years later for 850,000. No, that is not resale value. That is a little bit of ignorance. Why do I say so? Remember, there is something called inflation. Over the years, our currency has devalued a lot. You guys know there is a time the dollar was at 160. It keeps on fluctuating. So what you have here is not resale value. What you have here is its value measured in the current value of our shilling, of our Kenyan shilling. So if by the time ERICKO was bringing this car back then for 750,000 Kenya shillings, maybe the dollar was at 100 bob. Maybe the dollar was even at 90 something, right? When it's put against the Kenya shillings. But today, the dollar is where it is right now. So clearly, the currency has depreciated. We have lost value, and that is why you cannot say that because you imported this Premio at 750,000, you're selling it at 750,000, that is resale value. No, that is not resale value. That is ni pesa tu. It's just a measure. It's just paper. But in actual sense, the value has really depreciated. And if you want to really now get the picture of that, if he bought this car for 750,000 Kenya shillings back then, the 750,000 Kenya shillings of these days cannot even buy you a Suzuki Alto, right? Now, I think now the people who put in the resale value aspect when it comes to these vehicles get to understand this. So, yes, they do have resale value, but not as much as what people would, would perceive them to be. There is a lot of mathematics that people do not do. There is why are they loved, or what we have is actual like demand. So today somebody would buy this ZZT 265 for one reason, and that reason is because this car is simple to maintain. It's economical on fuel. It is very reliable, and even after 2 years, this car will still remain sellable. Are we together? I hope you guys have understood, and I hope that this has been an insightful review, and I'm going to sign out. Remember, I have been your host, ERICKO Kabi, Eric with a CK. Na tafadhali, since we have given you a very good lesson, please remember to subscribe to the channel. Also like this video so that it's recommended to somebody who might be in need of a Premio ZZT 265. Also, don't forget, if you're buying a local used vehicle, we offer pre-purchase inspection services, right? To make sure that this vehicle is in good condition, or to tell you, locally used vehicles, once you buy a locally used vehicle, you have to do 1, 2, 3 things. So we help you do a cost-benefit analysis of the vehicle that you're going to be buying. Sawa, and as we normally say at Auto Connect, usinunue gari kama mbuzi. Hata mbuzi, mtu angalia meno manze. Over and out. See you on Tuesday.